MJ Morris will be the starter for Maryland football.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have the competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. So Maryland's spring game just happened, and it's pretty clear to me that MJ Morris is going to be the starter for Maryland football. We got different reports after these last couple of weeks, after the Maryland football scrimmages, who was playing well, who wasn't playing well, who was playing consistently. And it really seemed like we had no idea. And it looked like nobody was really playing well at all. And it looked like we had no idea who the starter was going to be for Maryland football. But after watching that spring game, I'm pretty confident in saying that MJ Morris is our guy. And I was concerned with the reports. I was concerned. I made a segment on it. I said, it's a problem that nobody is standing out in this quarterback room, that nobody's taking the job, that everybody's kind of just been inconsistent. And I kept saying that we're inconsistent a lot, and we're inconsistently inconsistent. Or sorry, I reversed it. We're consistently inconsistent. So that means that we consistently kept not playing well at the quarterback position. It sounded like guys weren't figuring it out in that room, and everybody seemed like they had a different opinion on who might start. There was reports that MJ Morris in the first practice at Morgan State didn't really get that many first team reps, and it was mainly between Edge and Billy Edwards. And he didn't look good with the reps that he got. And then the next practice, it sounded like MJ Morris looked a little bit better and showed flashes, but it still sounded like he wasn't playing well. It sounded like Billy Edwards didn't play particularly well either. It sounded like Cameron Edge wasn't playing at a high level. So I was looking at this quarterback battle, and I was trying to figure it out, trying to put the pieces together. And I knew the spring ball game would give us a pretty big intel of who was kind of the leader of that house, who looks good. And it did. It definitely gave us a clearer picture of who the starter is going to be. And I'm pretty positive. One of the more positive things that I have thought about, one of the more things that I've been positive about definitely in a while about this take, that MJ Morris is going to be the starter. I don't even know if it's a crazy take. I think it's a pretty realistic take that most people would agree with me on. If you watch the games, MJ Morris was the best player in that room. He was the most accurate. He was the most consistent. And so basically how they formatted it was that Morris and Edwards took the first team reps. It was first team offense versus first team defense, and it was second team offense versus second team defense. And right there, you kind of were like, okay, so Cameron Edge, I guess he's in the competition, obviously, but it's like, I guess he's behind. I guess he's not our guy. It looks like he's probably not going to compete for the starting job because he's taking second team reps. Somebody had to do it. He's the youngest in that room, so maybe that's why. And there's been different talks about how he's been playing well, and I like Cameron Edge. I said that I think that Cameron Edge had a chance to win the job just because of his ability to throw the ball. But Cameron Edge took the second team reps while Billy Edwards and MJ Moore split the first team reps. So that was the first tell of the quarterback competition to say, okay, so this looks like it's MJ Morris versus Billy Edwards. Maybe I could be wrong, but it doesn't make sense for Cameron Edge to get no first team reps if he was still kind of in line to potentially be the starter. And that could be off, but excuse me, that's just kind of my opinion on it. And so that was the first thing I looked at. Who got what kind of snaps, and MJ Morris and Billy Edwards split the first team snaps. And then you get into the actual play, which is definitely the most important part of it. And MJ Morris looked in control. he looked good, honestly. He looked like the player that I thought we had recruited, and I thought maybe I was too high on him after what I thought he was at NC State, even though it was definitely kind of a weird situation with him at NC State, with him redshirting, with him playing some. It was definitely just an interesting situation at NC State, and him having some big wins and some big performances, but him also not playing in some games because he wanted to maintain his red shirt. It was really weird what was going on with NC State, but I still watched him and I was like, okay, like this is a guy that is going to come in and I think is going to be quarterback one. But then the reports were like he's not playing well, so I was like, okay, maybe he's not. But he looked like the player I thought he was out there for Maryland football. There's still stuff he needs to clean up. There's still stuff, I'm sure, a bunch that he has to get better at. But the fact that he looked the best out of all the three guys with the least amount of time to maintain this offense, Edge and Billy Edwards have been in this offense for a little bit now. They have been in that quarterback room with, even though not being the starter, but just being in that room, having a couple off seasons, having a couple spring ball games. You know what Maryland likes to do. You know how Coach Loxley likes to operate and practice. And so that tells me that the fact that MJ Morris already looked better in the spring game definitely is kind of a tell on just how talented MJ Morris is. And you got to give MJ Morris a ton of credit for playing good ball in the spring game after being in his first offseason as a Maryland football player. That's not easy to catch up to guys mentally, and that's probably the hardest part about the quarterback position. A lot of guys can make the throws, and of course, he is a big arm and he's a really talented player. A lot of guys can make the throws, but getting the mental part of it down is probably the hardest part of playing the quarterback position, all the different things that you have to get used to. And he looked good in the Maryland offense. It looked like it fit him right. But to get into some of the numbers, Morris went 6 for 8 for 65 yards, and he was just fairly consistent. It was nothing crazy. Maryland did run the ball a good amount, and I thought he controlled the game. I mean, 6 for 8 is not bad at all. At the quarterback room, what is that, 75% throwing the ball? So I'll take that. I just want someone that's going to be consistent and not going to turn over the ball. And then Edwards is still not consistent enough for me throwing the football. Edwards goes 6 of 14 for 36 yards. There was a lot of checkdowns and stuff. When I watch Billy Edwards, I just don't know if he's a guy that throw after throw after throw, I just trust to put the ball where it needs to be. His legs and what he can do with his legs and what he can do running the football, it's extremely impressive for Billy Edwards. And he can do things that no one else in that room can do running the football, even though MJ Morris can do some things definitely too running the ball, which I'll talk about in a sec. But I just didn't like the look of Billy Edwards' accuracy so far, and it showed up. It showed up in the Music City Bowl game. It showed up when he's played. He's not a guy that I can trust to just make throw after throw after throw in the right spot, consistently and accurately. And that concerns me about Billy Edwards, and I don't think he can be the starter, and that's a big reason why I think MJ Morris is our guy. I think MJ Morris can make the throws, but I think he also can bring that dual threat ability. I think he gives us the best of both worlds. I think maybe the most impressive part of the spring ball game from MJ Morris was how he utilized his legs. He got out, he got different rushing yards, and obviously they couldn't hit the quarterback, but there was a couple of holes he ran through where it was like, dang, like that's going to be a big part of this game this year, and that's going to be a bigger part of our offense this year with MJ Morris. And the thing is, like, you don't necessarily, if MJ Morris is our starter, which I completely think he is, you don't necessarily need to bring in Billy Edwards to give you a change in pace, to give you something different, to give you that running the football, to give you that option, because MJ Morris does that at a really high level. And so whereas if Cameron Edge was starting, you might want to do that. But Cameron Edge, I thought, made some throws, just didn't end up, the numbers didn't look great. He did run second team like I talked about, but he did make some nice throws, wasn't super consistent, but went 11 for 25 for 151 yards. And so I just think that it looks like MJ Morris is our guy. And I don't think I'm wrong about it. I don't think it's a crazy take. I think it's a pretty normal, it's a take that I think 90% of the Maryland fans would agree with me on. And I think that's the way it should be. I think MJ Morris just brings the best of both worlds, like what I talked about. He can throw the ball, He can also run the ball. And then he has actual like game day experience. Like Billy Edwards and Cameron Edge. Billy Edwards, yeah, he made a start until he was gone and hurt. But besides the Music City Bowl game, these guys haven't really played much. Like MJ Morris has made multiple starts and has done it at a high level. And I honestly think he's probably the most talented player in that room as well. I don't think this is the type of thing where it's like he's just experienced and he's a veteran and he's just going to kind of make the right throws that we need him to make and not turn over the ball. I would say MJ Morris is our most talented player with the combination of his legs and his arm talent. I think I would have to say MJ Morris is probably the most talented player in that room. And so I think that he's the right player to start, and I think he is going to start for Maryland football. And I like where we're going with him starting. And then also the interesting part about it is Malik Washington was at the spring game. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit more, but you guys know Malik Washington, 4-star quarterback from Spalding that we really want. And so it's interesting if he kind of took anything away from the quarterback battle, if he was like, that MJ Morris looked good and he's just got into this offense. I bet I can look good in this offense. I think MJ Morse and Malik Washington are similar players, and Malik Washington might be our number one guy in the 2025 class. So it's interesting that he was at the spring ball game. There's some other recruitment that we'll talk about on another day about the spring ball game. There's plenty of other stuff to get into, but I would talk about the cornerback room. Cornerback room might just be okay, even after the concerns. I will tell you about that after this ad from Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you could team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome the prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces and travel the boards with hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or their heists or their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So set off the bench and go download it now. Free on Google Play or the Apple Store. Game on. All right, so Maryland cornerback room. It's interesting. I think that the cornerback room, after watching the spring game and just going through everything in my head and kind of my thoughts, I like where the cornerback room is in terms of the starters. I think we're in a pretty good spot. I know there's concern with how the quarterback room was going to be this year, and I think honestly was our biggest question mark outside of quarterback. And even so, like if quarterback wasn't as important as the quarterback position was, you probably would say the cornerback room, just because we have 3 new starters in that room. We have a bunch of new guys, and it's the big talk of the offseason. And if you don't have guys that can cover and you don't have a cornerback room that is decent, at least in the Big Ten, you can struggle. And I know a lot of people think of the Big Ten as a running conference and Big Ten football, punt, play, defense. But that's kind of more the old Big Ten. Of course, there's some of those teams in here. But a lot of the new Big Ten, the Ohio States of the world, and Oregon's coming to the conference, and USC's in the conference now, like those teams can chuck the ball around. And so you need guys on the back end that can cover. And I would have been concerned if we didn't have guys back there that can cover. But I like the way this quarterback room is starting to shape up. Obviously, we lost our 2 outside guys in Tarheeb Still and Jaquan Shepard, who I'll talk about later. But Tarheeb Still did go in the 5th round to the Chargers in the NFL draft the other day, and Jaquan Shepard is going to be in the Raiders minicamp after going undrafted. But whenever you lose your 2 outside guys, it's hard to replace. And so it was the big talk. It's been a big topic for mine, and I finally got to see it on film. And I still want to go back and rewatch the spring game because obviously you're focused on quarterback play and those different things. But I did kind of focus on some of the cornerbacks, and I think we might have found our two starters, and it looks like it's going to be Jalen Husky on the outside from Bowling Green. And I like Jalen Husky on one of the cornerback spots. I think he can play at a high level. I think he's experienced from Bowling Green, and he played well when he played against a Big Ten opponent. He played against Michigan, and obviously Michigan's identity isn't just throw the ball, but he had a pick. He looked really good when he played against Michigan, and Michigan's got some guys on the outside for sure. Roman Wilson for sure just went, I think, in the second or third round in the NFL draft, and so he played well against those guys. And so I do like him as a player. I do like Jalen Husky as a player, and I think that he definitely will be a starter for Maryland football. It's just going to be about him adjusting to Big Ten football. If he can do it every single game, you're going to go against guys every single game. And versus Bowling Green, he might have played a couple guys where he's just better than on the outside. But there's going to be so many different types of really high-level players in the Big Ten at the receiver position. But I like the way he looked in the spring ball game. I thought he played at a really high level, and he also got the start, which was kind of expected. I definitely thought that Jalen Husky was going to be one of the starters at the cornerback position. But moving on to Perry Fisher, he continues to press, looked really good in the spring ball game. Perry Fisher is, I think, the most intriguing player on our team because this guy was a development guy, and a lot of these guys sometimes just don't pan out. He played quarterback, not corner. I know it sounds similar. He played quarterback in high school, and now he's playing cornerback for Maryland football. So we took him as a development guy, and he's really developed. Listen to his high school stats. He went 184 of 332 passes for 2,972 yards and 27 touchdowns in high school. So he was like very much a quarterback. It wasn't like, oh, like this guy was like just kind of like an athlete, like at the quarterback position. He was really playing quarterback out there. And he looks like he's going to be a potential breakout guy for the Terps. Maybe the most unexpected starter for Maryland in the back end. I mean, maybe after the Music City Bowl game where he played at a really high level, a lot of people maybe would have thought that he could continue it, but I wasn't sure. I thought this Perry Fisher kid, he looks good, but I haven't ever seen him play very much. And so maybe it was just a one game type of thing, but he's definitely put it down. He's definitely figured it out. Some guys just figure it out and the switch flips, but he was a guy that the staff developed, like I said, a quarterback. And so he needed time to play the position a lot, but I think Fisher is going to be a guy. He looked good in the spring game again, and we continue to look like we have a tradition of having good cornerbacks. And then Braden Lee, the freshman, the reports he's looked really good in practice, and it looks like he could potentially, I don't know exactly where he squeaks in. I think he's talented enough to cover in the slot and play slot corner, but I don't know if he's big enough right now in terms of coming up and having to stop the run, because those guys have to get into the run game a lot and have to fill gaps and stuff. And I don't think he's big enough to be in that slot cornerback spot yet, but I do think he could mix in potentially and adds depth and could be like the next guy off the bench. He didn't play particularly well in a couple of snaps to Octavian Smith, but Octavian Smith could be the most explosive athlete on our team, but Braden Lee is expected to be one of our best athletes as well. But I do think Braden Lee as a freshman, he looked pretty good besides those couple of times he got beat by Octavian Smith. And I think Braden Lee sounds like he could be a guy that plays and pushes that room a little bit. I do like Fisher and Husky on the outside, but it's still kind of like Fisher still, I mean, he played well in the Music City Bowl game. He played well in the Maryland football spring game, but it's a different dog when you get into the actual games. And teams are studying you and figuring out what you do bad, how do we attack you, and all those different things. It's a different type of thing. And so it's going to be interesting to see how well he can play there. But I wouldn't mind adding a depth piece or two to this room, but I do like where it's at overall. 2 Terps were drafted in the NFL draft. Let's talk about those guys and give them some props. I'll tell you about those 2 guys after this ad from FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA, and NHL and baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. There's 3 different basketball games today. I know you guys love the NBA playoffs, and there's also a bunch of NHL playoff games. You guys got to download FanDuel. You get $150 win or lose in bonus bets. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, and all in the app is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. GameTime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. GameTime has deals on the tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute tickets and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Let's talk about the NFL draft for the Terps. I just wanted to touch on it. I think it's important to talk about our couple of Terps that got drafted. And so I want to start with Tarheeb Still, who went in the 5th round for the Maryland Terrapins, and he's off to go play for the Chargers, and he's going to play for Coach Harbaugh, which is interesting. You guys know that Coach Harbaugh is now the coach of the Chargers, coming from Michigan. So we got a Maryland guy going to play for Coach Harbaugh, which is, it's not weird, but it's a little bit different, and we'll see how that goes. But I think Tarheeb Still, I don't know if this was like a little bit above where I thought he would go. I just didn't see a lot of hype about him. But in my head, I was like, I don't know. I can definitely see Tarheeb Still going like 5th, 4th round because of his versatility as a player. And I think the Chargers was a good fit, and I'm not surprised they got him at all. I think they could use some secondary help. And he puts up a good film on Maryland since freshman year. He's been playing at a really high level, and he does a lot of things well. So it made a lot of sense to me that he went in the 5th round, and I don't think it was a reach at all. I wonder what Charger fans kind of think of it. But the thing is, Charger fans won't really understand his they won't understand how he is as a player. They won't really get it until unless he does it at a high level in the NFL, just because Charger fans aren't watching Maryland football, and that's just the reality of it. And if you're Charger fans and you're watching this, and let me know. But Tarheeb Still is a really good player, and I think the reason he got drafted, a big part of it is that his versatility. He can play the outside cornerback position. He proved that last year where he locked down a lot of guys, played a lot of guys at a high level, and I think he does a really good job of being able to play the outside. But then he also played the inside before that and can play the slot position. NFL loves those type of guys that can play the outside, play the inside. And he also has been a punt returner for us as well. They like guys that can do different things. And so I think Tarheeb Still was made to be a guy that goes in like the 5th, 4th round and plays in the NFL for 10 plus years. I think he can do that. I really do. And he continues the tradition of Maryland cornerbacks getting drafted. Of course, Deontay Banks and Jacorian Bennett and Maryland corners just continue, and Maryland secondary type of guys continue to get drafted and continue to play in the NFL. And I think it's a good look. And I'm really happy for Tarheeb Still. I think he really embodies Maryland football. He did it at a really high level. 2nd team All Big Ten last year. I think Tarheeb Still is going to make Charger fans really happy. I don't think it would be interesting to see what he does in kind of mini camp and in preseason and all those different things in training camp, if he can find a way to maybe play eventually, but we'll see what happens with that overall. And then Delmar Glaze, 3rd round pick to the Raiders. I thought before the season, I don't know what episode it was. I record every single day for this, but I said before the season that Delmar Glaze could go like 3rd round. I thought maybe he could even push 2nd round before the season. This was before the season. And I turned out to be right. I said the other day that Delmar Glaze probably goes 4th, 5th round, but I'm not surprised at all that he goes in the 3rd round. I thought that's where he should have gone before the season, and then he had a pretty solid year. He's an all Big Ten type of guy. Maybe he didn't have like a crazy good year, but he's been a top-rated tackle according to PFF for a while now, and I think it makes sense for the Raiders to pick him in the 3rd round. Offensive linemen, those type of guys. The NFL wants those type of guys in later rounds, and if you can get a good guy like that could potentially just help you out, play either tackle spots, in the NFL. I think that's a good spot. I don't expect him to be a starter, but I just think he's going to be a depth piece. But guys that you draft in the third round are guys you hope to potentially be starters. You're not drafting a guy in the second and third round just for them to sit and be backups and be depth pieces all forever. You expect those guys eventually to kind of take over, whether it's a guy leaving on a contract or whatever it is. But Delmar Glaze going to the Raiders, I think, is a good spot for him. He'll have some tough pass rushers to go against. He might see Max Crosby in practice, and that'll be interesting to see how that goes, obviously, because Max Crosby is one of the best in the game. But I did want to give props to the guys that did get drafted. I will talk about the guys that didn't get drafted and kind of there's a lot of disappointment, honestly. I'll talk about that tomorrow, so make sure you like and subscribe. But that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe, leave a comment, whatever you guys want to do. But thank you for listening today. We'll be back tomorrow, and thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.